On January 27, 1967, a fire swept through the command module of Apollo 1 during a pre-launch test, killing all 3 of its crew members in one of the first tragedies of the space age. The mission, which was set to launch the next month, would have been the first human-crewed Apollo flight. Command pilot Virgil "Gus" Grissom, senior pilot Edward White, and pilot Roger Chaffee, all experienced astronauts and military veterans, perished in the accident. Gus Grissom was an accomplished Air Force pilot who had flown over 100 missions during the Korean War. After his service, he joined NASA and participated in missions in both Project Mercury and Project Gemini. Edward White was an Air Force pilot who, as the pilot during the Gemini 4 mission, became the first American to complete a spacewalk. Roger Chaffee was a Navy pilot who participated in NASA missions during Project Gemini before joining the Apollo program. The accident had a profound impact on the astronaut community, and changes were made to the command module for future missions to ensure the safety of other astronauts. The Apollo program famously would later put American astronauts on the moon. In 2022, a monument to these pioneers was placed in Section 3 of Arlington National Cemetery and dedicated in a ceremony attended by NASA officials and family members of the fallen astronauts. It is located near the graves of Grissom and Chaffee. White is buried at West Point Cemetery at the U.S. Military Academy. Inscribed on the monument is Ad Astra Per Aspera, which translates to, "A rough road leads to the stars." The legacy of Gus Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee lives on in every American space mission. May their service and their sacrifice never be forgotten.
After the Apollo 1 disaster, NASA launched an unmanned Apollo 4 test flight in November 1967 and a manned Apollo 7 mission on October 1968. Their objective was to test the spacecraft in low Earth orbit for 11 days, and the mission was a success. The Apollo 8 mission, launched on December 21, 1968, was the first manned spacecraft to leave Earth's orbit and travel to the moon. The crew, consisting of Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders, orbited the moon for 20 hours and took the iconic Earthrise photograph. The mission was a pivotal moment in the space race.
We were that first crew that was going to get a chance to fly this vehicle and test this vehicle that was going to take human beings to the moon. We were very, very aware of the time pressure, and everything has to go right if we're for sure going to meet Kennedy's goal of getting to the moon in that decade and back. Apollo 9 was an engineering mission from beginning to end. We tested every possible thing that could be tested. The mission was completely dedicated to testing the systems, the engines, and the guidance and navigation, all kinds of things that we could do in Earth orbit.
So when we first got into orbit, we had a lot of stuff to do. And so we needed to make sure that we had all the data we could get.
Simply stated, the purpose of the Apollo 10 flight is a final test of the men and machines required to do the lunar landing mission.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 10, you can tell the world that we have arrived. give a Silver Snoopy for Excellence Award. I wanted to honor the people that had worked so hard, so we called it Snoopy. Well, you needed two names, so naturally the other one was Charlie Brown.
The Apollo 11 mission, launched on July 16, 1969, was the first manned mission to land on the moon. The crew, consisting of Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, landed on the lunar surface on July 20, 1969, and spent approximately 2.5 hours outside the spacecraft. Armstrong famously declared,
"It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."